And if you've recently tried to purchase concert tickets through Ticketmaster, you know it can be a painstaking process, and it is often really, really expensive. At least it has been this year. But there are also a whole bunch of documented cases of alleged overcharging. And right now, U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal from right here in Connecticut is demanding action to essentially hold Ticketmaster accountable. And just a little while ago, he held a press conference about that process in the city of Hartford. Let's take a listen back to what he said.
Fans know the truth. They know when they go to buy tickets for concerts at theaters like this one, they find that the tickets are nowhere to be found, or that they disappear and the prices change while they're trying to buy them. It's no accident that prices of concert tickets are skyrocketing and that they seem to be disappearing even as people try to buy them. And last month, an American jury rendered a verdict on Ticketmaster and Live Nation. It said to those companies, you're a monopoly. You have been exploiting consumers, leveraging your monopolistic power to raise prices and engage in unfair and abusive practices. And what I'm proposing today are some remedies. Consumers and fans, artists, venues, they all suffer from Ticketmaster, Live Nation controlling 80% of the concert ticket market in our nation. That 80% is used by Ticketmaster, Live Nation to pressure artists to put tickets on the resale market before they are offered to the general public, so that the scalpers can sell them before consumers even have access to them. Ticketmaster, Live Nation is pressuring artists not only to put those tickets on the resale market before they're available to the general public, but it is also forcing them to use dynamic pricing, which raises prices in response to more demand, which means fans pay more for those tickets as more of them try to buy tickets. And we know that the technology used by Ticketmaster Live Nation has failed on a number of occasions during Taylor Swift Eras Tour, for example. The remedies for stopping Ticketmaster Live Nation from exploiting its monopoly at the expense of consumers are to break up the company and impose a price cap on secondary sales. We know clearly what is needed here, which is to divide Ticketmaster and Live Nation, break up this monopoly so that fans, artists, venues will have real competition and access to the market without Ticketmaster Live Nation forcing them to exploit consumers. Ticketmaster controls the venues, it pressures the artists, it exploits the fans, it does it with control over 80% of the ticket concert market. And breaking up this company is overdue. I've advocated for years, but we also need a price cap on secondary market sales so that the scalpers are stopped from exploiting consumers with skyrocketing prices, and a junk fees prevention act that compels transparency. So ticket buyers going online don't find that the ticket price somehow has increased after they buy the ticket as a result of those hidden fees and charges. These kinds of abuses are stoppable. We know what's necessary. Breaking up the company, restrictions on the practices, making sure that consumers and fans and artists and venues have free choices in the market without Ticketmaster Live Nation exerting its control to pressure higher prices, which means higher profits for them at the expense of consumers. And we know also that Ticketmaster Live Nation didn't grow organically. It's a result of a merger. The merger should be unwound. The company should be broken up. It was a bad decision at the outset. I opposed it then, and now I believe that the company ought to be broken up because the worst fears have proved to be true.
All right, again there, Senator Richard Blumenthal talking about the fact that he thinks Ticketmaster and Live Nation need to be broken up because of alleged cases of ticket overcharging. So we'll have to continue to monitor what happens next in that situation.